On this episode of Dirt Tracker Conversations, it's late model time, guys. With the World of Outlaws late model series just underway last weekend at Volusia and Lucas getting ready to start this weekend, I'm joined by Joshua Joyner of Hunt the Front and Dirt on Dirt contributor in the past. We talk everything Outlaws, Lucas, you name it, young drivers to watch, potential champions, what's going to happen with Jonathan Davenport and Jimmy Owens, what his thoughts are on the new XR series. We cover a lot of ground in the next about 30 minutes or so. So please enjoy this episode with Joshua Joyner. Me and Joshua have actually known each other quite a long time. He worked at World Racing Group when I worked there as well. But I want to start off, first of all, and just congratulate you guys on 100,000 YouTube subscribers. That's like such a huge kind of momentous occasion for a YouTube channel. You guys got the plaque and everything. But did you think when you started this that you would get to this point you guys are at now?
First of all, thanks. We appreciate the congratulations there. It's been a long road, but rewarding one. I mean, we did it because the idea was that we could get there, and it'd be cool if we could, make something pretty big. And that was always kind of a goal, but I don't know if we really seriously thought that it would ever really turn into anything significant. So it's been pretty cool to see Hunt the Front become something that at least a good amount of people find entertaining.
Can you even go to a dirt track anymore, like without getting mobbed?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you call mobbed. So myself, I can fly under the radar a little more typically, but Jonathan, Joseph, and Jesse, being the main stars of the show, I guess you could say they draw a crowd for sure. Just about any racetrack they go to, which is pretty cool because used to, before all this, we were kind of just no name people, didn't draw really any kind of crowd when it came, going to races, especially the bigger races locally. We were pretty, we were pretty well known as racers. So it's pretty cool to definitely get to expand our horizons and make a lot of fans and friends along the way.
Yeah. Well, so the main reason I want to have you on the show, like we're just kind of getting into the 2022 late model season here. And you're a guy, you've been around late model racing a long time. You've been covering late model racing a long time. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts on kind of a bunch of different stuff. And I want to start with the opening Outlaw weekend at Volusia. Kind of a lot of different things to talk about. But first of all, Dale McDowell, big win, kicks off the season, coming off after that cancer thing. But what are the kind of notable takeaways for you after that first weekend at Volusia? And I guess first only one show at Volusia.
Yeah, I think it's hard to look past the situation there with the track, and it's unfortunate that track it only has the bigger races like that, at least in the late model scene, one time a year. So it's kind of hard for World Racing Group to, when they want to, if they're going to make a change to the track, they kind of have to do it during the off season, and then it's right into their biggest races. So it's unfortunate that they don't have a chance to kind of test out the new surface and iron it out, the prep and everything before going into their big race season, season of racing. So that would be nice to have had a couple practice nights and race weekends on it. So it made for the racing the racing was interesting if you're watching as a fan, but I would hate to have been, a driver or a race team down there with the way things were going. As far as the storylines go, obviously Dale McDowell, as you mentioned, is the big storyline. To me, I think the feel good story, everyone wondered, even Dale said that, kind of wondered if he'd race again. And then he comes back pretty quickly or seems like quickly from his surgery and his cancer treatment there. And not only comes back and is competitive, but he's, dominant by far there. It's pretty impressive to see and a pretty cool moment. Other storylines, I think the big thing or one thing that kind of stood out to me was kind of the Outlaws rookies. How many World of Outlaws late model series rookie contenders and hopefuls, I guess I don't say contenders, but hopefuls there are, and kind of keeping an eye on that. It's always something that's interesting to me, is watching those new guys kind of jump up to the tour. Max Blair, I think, had a solid run, I think 7th or 8th or something. He's a guy that is done a lot at the regional level, and he's getting a chance with Viper Motorsports to branch out a little bit, and he's going to be a guy to watch for the whole year. So it's good to see him get off kind of to a solid start to the season down there.
I know when we talk about the sprint cars at Volusia, everybody always talks about how like Volusia is kind of its own animal and it doesn't really translate to the rest of the season. And when you talk to guys, talk to teams, is the same feeling kind of the case on the late model side where it's like Volusia is just kind of its own animal and whatever happens there is just kind of segmented out from the rest of the season?
I think there's a little bit of that. I mean, I think maybe on the late model side, it's a little different. I don't feel like, um, I feel like the track and the guys that are good there are typically good elsewhere as well. There's not like East Bay on the Lucas Oil side. There's certain guys that are just really good at East Bay, right? And they may not be as good elsewhere, or as competitive elsewhere, I should say. Whereas Volusia, I feel like it's a little more normal. You see the same guys being competitive typically. What I think is that you can sometimes, it's hard to judge like the Lucas Oil Series with their speed weeks. You can get a better judge of who's kind of positioned to be have a good year and run really well because there's so many different tracks. I mean, this year they're going to is it 4 different tracks they'll run at during speed weeks. So you get a little bit more variety and a better idea of who's overall is going to do well for the year. Whereas, yeah, it is only for the Outlaws. It is only one track, so it's kind of hard to base any judgments for the entire season off that. Plus, it's a totally different crowd for the Outlaws. You get more of a mix of drivers, more of the big names, such as Dale McDowell. He's not going to run, but a handful of World of Outlaws races the rest of the year, and he's down there, dominating the opener. So it takes a while for it to all shake out. Some of the guys from the Lucas Oil Series. With no conflicting dates during speed weeks, a lot of those guys are jumping on and running all the Volusia Outlaw races just to, I guess some of them have a backup plan if their Lucas Oil season doesn't start very well. So it's a different mix of drivers, which shakes it up more than when those guys get out and away. And there's just the regulars, you get a better idea of who's going to be good for the entire season.
When we talk about the championship for the Outlaws, it's been Brandon Sheppard and everyone else. And last year it felt like it was as open as it possibly could have been with Sheppard having a down year, and Madden still wasn't able to run him down. Do you think that's still the case this year? I mean, we've got, I think, 16 full timers now with the Outlaws. Can anybody really mount a charge and knock that team off?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's my answer. If I was a bet man, I would bet on Brandon Sheppard and the Rocket House Car team on the Outlaws. You would like to think that Josh Richards coming back over would be able to give him a challenge, but off to a rough start with first practice night out in his new car, and the car's got to go back to Rocket after I think they said throttle hung and he got into the wall and bent something there. And not that that's an indication of how Josh's season's going to go, but you're already trying to adjust to a new team, a new ride and everything, and your first night out you're having some bad luck there. And I think they're not a well-oiled machine like the Rocket House Car team is, and what they're capable of doing, and you got to be firing on all cylinders right out of the gate to keep up with those guys, I would imagine. Chris Madden, I'd like to see Chris Madden be more competitive in the points race, but I just don't know that he's really going to be able to challenge Sheppard. And I expect the B Shep and the Rocket House Car team really will bounce back from. Everyone said it was a down year last year, but that was still a pretty good down year to win the championship. And I don't even know how many races he won, but was quite a few. I think he'll come back even stronger. You don't see the Rocket team have 2 down years in a row ever, hardly. So I wouldn't imagine them. Last year was the year if someone was gonna sneak in there and get the championship. I don't think it'll happen this year, personally.
What do you think about that Outlaw rookie class? It feels to me like it's probably Max Blair and then everyone else, but do you have a different opinion there?
I would give Tanner English a little more of a chance. I would say the 2 of them probably have to me the most when we're talking about traveling and the different types of tracks. Gundaker there is pretty solid in his area, but I don't think he'll be as well when they start traveling to different tracks out of his comfort zone. Whereas those two guys, Blair and English, have done a lot of traveling and been to a lot of different races. English, of course, followed a lot of the Lucas Oil Series in the past, so he's done a lot of traveling and summer nationals as well. So and Blair's he wins just about everywhere he goes in the crates and the regional ranks. So I think he'll transition well. So I'd say is those two guys. Then everybody else, I would give Blair the edge. Just like every year with the these national tours, typically you'll have a lot of guys kind of start the year intending on running the whole thing. I think it'll whittle down fairly quickly. And I, if I had to bet, I would say Blair and English will be the last, the two kind of that survive and make it, and hopefully have a good rookie battle. It adds another complexion to a series, a national tour like that, when you have two up and comers kind of going at it for their own points battle outside of the regular series points.
Lucas starts this weekend at Golden Isles. Larson will be there. I mean, you'll have probably a murderer's row of drivers that are taking on that weekend. But one thing I feel like we don't really get from Lucas, at least publicly, is like the guys that are going to run full time for sure. And I'm curious what you're hearing about which guys are going to be out. We've heard rumors about Davenport, we've heard rumors about Owens, but where do you think right now we sit with that full time Lucas field?
Davenport has said on his social media, or at least his Facebook page, that he doesn't intend on going to Ocala, which is the second set of races there, 2 races. That could change. I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to run the Lucas Oil Series until I see him miss at least 2 races. As we saw last year, he was going to skip Brownstown, and then it got postponed, and he was able to make it up later and ended up not missing that show. But I think, if I think that will be answered for Davenport come this. I guess it would be if they get the 2 races in at Brunswick. Weather's not looking great for that, but if they get those two in and then he shows up at Ocala, obviously, he's probably intending on at least keeping the option of running the tour. And if not, he'll have decided pretty early he's not. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. And he, there's just so many other options out there as far as big money races to go to, that following a national tour for some of these guys isn't as appealing as it used to be. Owens, kind of the same deal. I've heard different things. I've heard directly from him that he's likes the idea of doing something different and just kind of doing the pick and choose, but that doesn't mean it's he didn't make a decision the last I heard, and that was late in the year last year. So I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see who shows up. I think when you say the Lucas Oil Series doesn't really say who's going to run, I think it's because they probably don't know for sure. A lot of guys are saying, well, we'll see, we'll see. But I think that other than maybe Davenport and Owens, I think that's the 2 main ones that may not be back. Obviously, Richards and said he intends on running the Outlaws, for a loss there. But I think they'll still have a solid group. McCready appears to be coming back to defend his title. Ricky Thornton Jr., I believe, is on board coming back. Last year's Rookie of the Year, Dirt Track World Championship winner. So he'll be one to watch. So I think it'll still be a solid group once it all kind of shakes out.
Do you think that this kind of almost like migration away from running the series, guys like Davenport and Owens, do you think that would have happened anyway? Or do you think that they're influenced by what we've seen Brandon Overton do the last couple of years and all of the big money shows that he's won?
I think they would have. I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, Overton certainly paved the way and showed the path for someone. If you're a top level driver like that, and you're hitting on all cylinders, you can certainly go out and make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money on a national tour too, but I don't think he would have done as well, Overton, and I think he would say this, or won as much and had the season he did, if not for kind of being able to pick and choose his races, take breaks when he needed to kind of reload and kind of go back home and kind of regroup, I guess, his team sometimes, and then come out even better for it. Whereas a national tour, you have to go to those races pretty much every week, throughout the year. That's going to it can kind of become a drag sometimes. And plus, you're not racing for the same amount of money in a lot of those races. So yeah, I think, I think a lot of, as these races, the big money paydays and so many more of them coming out, I think guys would have figured that out. But certainly Overton kind of showed that, right now, certainly that's an option for guys. If you can go out and win races and run well, if you're the kind of guy that you're going to go through, guys that go through slumps throughout the year, it's nice to know you have a series provisional to fall back on, and that show up money that's going to get you to the next race. And whenever things get slim, and there's a lot of guys that there's very few teams that can win on the way that Brandon Overton did last year. Even he's gone through cycles and everything. And even a Davenport who won plenty, there's years he wins not as good as, he hadn't had a year quite like Overton did last year, but he's had his good years. But he's also had years where he probably was, better off on a national tour where he knows he's getting, a certain amount each time he goes to the racetrack, and he's getting a decent payday at the end of the season. So, it's kind of risk reward, and you got to feel like you're capable, I guess, as a driver and as a team, going out and really running well in those big races if you're going to give up the little bit of security there you have with a national tour.
When we talk about the Lucas Championship, obviously McCready coming off the championship win last year. When we look at who his challengers are going to be this year, we saw Hudson O'Neal step up last year and win some big races. Turbo can basically win wherever he goes. But like the difference I see is just who can be consistent enough to stay with McCready, like somebody like McCready all year. And like, do you think those are kind of the main two challengers for McCready as we get started into this thing?
Sorry, I missed who you said.
Turbo and Hudson O'Neal.
I don't. I mean, Hudson O'Neal, I think so. He showed last year. If you'd asked me this, like before last year, seeing what Hudson O'Neal was capable of, not just winning races, he's shown he's able to win races, but the consistency and being close in the championship battle, that was a surprise to me. I think he kind of proved a lot of doubters, I guess you would say, myself included, not on the ability to win races again, but just, the kind of the night in, night out being consistent. And yeah, I think he's probably going to be a contender again this year. Turbo is still kind of has those lingering doubts whether he can win races. He can be, dominant at certain places and really good. And then he can go through spells where, he can sometimes be struggling to crack the top 10 for a few races. And you just can't do that when you have a guy like McCready, even Davenport, wasn't quite that way last year, but years past, that are just, so consistent night in and night out. Usually if you're struggling, if you have a drought at all, like a slump at all, it kind of almost knocks you out unless you're capable of doing what Davenport did last year and reeling off a bunch of wins. But most guys aren't going to do that. So I think those two guys definitely could be championship contenders, but I think, and I would lean more towards O'Neal after what he did last year. Whereas Turbo, I think he's got to get that consistency a little bit more before I would, bet on him against McCready.
I want to ask you about Spencer Hughes coming out with PCC. Like those guys, like it's a really young crew. He's a really young driver, but like I feel like he was really fast at a lot of places last year. I would not be surprised to see him break through and win some races this year. What are your thoughts on Spencer and kind of, some potential young guys out there that we should kind of be paying attention to this year?
Yeah, Spencer Hughes, definitely a guy with a lot of talent and a lot of potential that'll be interesting to watch this year. He kind of reminds me of Ricky Thornton Jr. Going into last year. Maybe not quite the resume that Thornton had going into the season, but a lot of, I guess, hype, you would say, and expectations. And then they get on the tour, Thornton gets on the tour and he even won a race during speed weeks. But then you kind of remember he's a rookie, and at the national tour, and he didn't have quite, until the end of the season there. And he obviously had a big win at the dirt track, but for most of the year, he had his ups and downs. And I think Spencer Hughes, while I fully expect he'll have some strong runs, probably could win a race or two if some things go his way. When you're tackling a national tour for the first time with a young driver, a young crew, that can be really challenging. And like I said, he's probably, like Thornton did last year, he's going to have his ups and downs. The positive for Hughes is he did travel with the series for most of the second half of the season last year. It seemed like, I'm not sure exactly when he started following most of the races, but he did a lot of, they had a chance to gel and get some experience on the tour late last year. So that'll probably benefit him, but I still think he'll probably have some ups and downs along the way, like any rookie, but I think overall he's poised to have probably a pretty solid first year on the Lucas Oil Series.
Whenever I do any sort of late model talk on my own shows, you always get asked questions about Bloomquist and where's Bloomquist racing and who's got sponsors and this and that. What are you hearing about Bloomer's season? Is he healthy? Is he going to try to race a bunch? Do you know anything about his situation?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think when hearing when him and Cody Summer, who had kind of bought into his program there and was running his organization when they split at the end of last year, I heard it was because Scott's plan was he was going to still keep racing and he thinks he can be competitive, whereas maybe Cody had some other ideas as far as transitioning for the future of the organization. So if that's the case, then I'd imagine Scott's planning on obviously I don't think he's going to run a national tour. I think it'll be a pick and choose type deal, and who knows. I mean, he's been kind of written off before and come back at times. I think he's got to at some point you got to think it's going to get where he's not going to be as competitive as he used to be, but I think he's definitely got the potential to sneak in and win a big race here and there, and kind of remind everyone that he's still, he's still Scott Bloomquist. So it'll be interesting to watch. I'm not exactly sure what his plans are, but definitely going to be interesting to see how things go for him this year.
The other thing that's kind of been a topic of conversation is Clint Boyer Racing and the 14. Are they going to be back this year? Are they shutting down? Who's going to drive that thing? I mean, I feel like there's just like, there's no rumors coming out. I mean, what are you hearing about that deal?
I've not heard anything. So,
That's not good.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm not, no longer being, I'm no longer working full time for Dirt on Dirt and Flow Racing. I'm not really, hounding the storylines and the sources like I used to. I think at this point, if they hadn't said anything, I don't probably nothing happening. I would think, at least not for speed weeks or full time on the Lucas Oil series, obviously. So I'm not sure. Obviously Clint Boyer has been in the sport a long time, in dirt late model racing with his team. Who knows where he is and kind of with his future now that he's no longer doing the cup racing, and he might, be looking to transition away from the sport. And who can, at least, who can blame him after, as long as he's been in it. It was a good run, and he's put a lot into the sport with his team, and gave some drivers good opportunities. So even if it is kind of the end of the road for that organization, it's been still kind of cool to have him in the sport, as before kind of it became cool for NASCAR drivers to be involved in dirt racing at the level we see these days. He was in it, and a backer of it. So that was pretty cool.
We've seen XR come in, kind of shake things up, a lot of big money races, the Bristol stuff, and kind of all of the SMI tracks that they're kind of pulled into this. What do you think the kind of effect is on the sport with those guys coming in? Is this a good thing? Are they ruffling feathers? What are your kind of overall thoughts on the XR stuff and where we stand with all of that right now?
Thank you. You kind of hit the nail on the head with both your observations there. You said, is it a good thing? Yes, more for drivers and teams, more money in the sport, more big races. It's, how can you, argue against that? But yes, they have ruffled some feathers along the way, I would say. So, it's kind of been an interesting dynamic watching XR kind of come into the sport. And first of all, I think there are some, what's the word I'm looking for? Misconceptions about XR. It's kind of like, some people who aren't familiar with the structure there and who's behind all that kind of think it's this, they are established. Barry Braun with XR has been in the sport for a long time and done a lot. He knows what he's doing when it comes to promoting events and the live streaming package, which is kind of obviously, I think, funding the events they're doing and what they have going on there. So he's not new to this. He knows what he's doing. He's got some good people involved with it that have been around the sport for a long time. It seems to be, they have some big plans, obviously, with the events that they've already done. The XR, and now this year expanding the XR Super Series, I think is what it's being called. The Bristol Points Fund is for 2 weekends of racing there is very lucrative. A lot of guys don't, the idea of going to Bristol for a lot of teams is daunting. And when it came out that there was going to be 8 races over the 2 weeks, there was like, oh, I don't know about that. But, now they cut it back to 2 races each weekend. And then for a $300,000 total points fund, very appealing, kind of money you don't, you don't see rarely in the sport. And then buying the Southern All-Stars, which to me shows that there are kind of, there's some interest there in the grassroots level of our sport, the lower levels, the regional level. So I don't know. It's very interesting to see what they're doing. Definitely shaking things up a bit, giving teams other options. I think if the XR races weren't there and weren't a thing, you probably, some of those guys are talking about doing the pick and choose stuff, probably would be, back on a national tour, or at least more likely to, that this is giving them, kind of spurring them to maybe not run a full tour this year. So it's definitely shaking things up, made it interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of shakes out going forward.
Kind of looking around the sport right now, it seems like everything is like pretty great. I mean, you've got Outlaws paying more money. You've got Lucas paying more money. We just talked about XR. You got Flow Racing stuff during the week. You've got, all the regional series. Like if you're a dirt late model team right now, and obviously you're involved in a dirt late model team, but like, how the hell do you pick on a week to week basis where the hell you're going to go race right now?
Well, I think, for our team, it's, we're still a lower budget team, and we're not able to travel far and wide. So it's kind of the most appealing race that's within reason to get to. And you look at, well, what drivers are expected to be there and all that as well. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be a part of a team. I mean, it's no secret that dirt late model racing, is in any really any form of racing, you don't make much. It's a losing battle. If you're in it to make money, you're most likely, not you're not going to be in it very long. Whereas now it's like, this money they're putting up, yeah, guys are still spending a lot of money, and the cost of racing continues to go up. But as at least now it's like, well, there's a lot of money to be out there to be won, and guys can kind of, make a little bit of money at this. Maybe some team owners a little more, it might be a little more attracted to it. It reminds me of NASCAR when the television money started coming into the sport and actually made it, instead of a bunch of rednecks running up down the road and beating and banging all over the place, became a professional sport. I think we're obviously it's still a long ways away from the growth that NASCAR had in the 90s and early 2000s, and I don't think we'll ever get to that point with dirt track and dirt late model racing. But I think it is revolutionizing the sport. Streaming, when I say it, is revolutionizing the sport. And the revenue that brings in for that thankfully is going back to drivers through events and payouts. I think it is kind of changing our sport, and it's an exciting time to be involved and be a team that's kind of on the kind of riding that wave with the sport overall.
Kyle Larson has kind of turned a lot of this stuff, I feel like, on its head. And you've seen the effect he's had on midget racing and the effect he's had on sprint car racing. And then him coming over to the late model side has been, just incredible. And, he ran the opening of Volusia weekend. There's some talk of him running some of these Lucas races. From somebody like you that's been around late model racing as long as you have, like, how much fun has it been to watch Larson come in, and how has he kind of been accepted by the community as he's jumped in that Rumley 6?
It's been pretty cool to see. Like I've, all of my life, and being around racing, NASCAR and the asphalt side of things has been very separate from dirt track racing. Obviously you had I think the prelude to the dream back years ago was kind of a big deal. And the NASCAR, it really kind of started NASCAR guys kind of becoming more interested in dirt racing. Obviously Tony Stewart was a big deal with that, was already kind of involved. But you're seeing it at a level now where it's almost normal for these guys. I think we're going to get to a point where it's normal for NASCAR guys to dirt race on their as their side hustle, I guess you could say. So it's pretty cool to see. It makes I think our sport a little more relevant. Maybe in the big picture, which I think is cool and brings more fans into the sport. Our level of the sport, I think that's only it's only a good thing. I don't know, as far as how Larson's been accepted, I think it's pretty universal. Most fans think it's, or have a positive view of it. There's some, old school and maybe for whatever reason don't like it, I guess. I don't know, but or don't like to see the same guy winning a lot of stuff. Perhaps is a reason. As far as drivers, I don't know. I think there's drivers out there that don't really, kind of, don't. I don't want to say they're the negative view of it, but if they get to a point where all these NASCAR guys are coming into the sport, it may kind of take some opportunities away from the actual dirt race racers. If Larson wasn't coming into the sport, would there be someone else in the Rumley car type deal there? I guess that could be an issue some, and I think there are some drivers that kind of I don't say it's a jealousy thing, but don't like you don't anyone who comes in and just wins right away and kind of steals their thunder a little bit. I could see that being frustrating. I'm sure some guys deal with that, but it just hopefully just makes them work harder, I'm sure, and get better and be faster themselves.
Well, I appreciate the time today. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but give me the Hunt the Front plugs. Where can we find merch? How can we keep up with you guys? Give me the full rundown on all the Hunt the Front stuff.
Yeah, definitely. You can check us out on YouTube. It's our biggest platform. Where all our vlogs are at. You can go to YouTube and search Hunt the Front, and we should be one of the first ones. Our channel should be one of the first ones to pop up. We're on Facebook too, where we update, do our race team updates and all that. Our website is huntthefront.net, and you can go directly to our shop to buy merchandise. All that is htfmerch.com. So
love it.
Appreciate the time, and definitely looking forward to getting the season started. Our plan is to go down to the Lucas Oil Series at Ocala and Alltech. So definitely looking forward to getting down there and getting some racing in.
Oh, you guys are going to start it off with big time, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
I
the
love it.
plan. The last few years we've done crate stuff during speed weeks. It'll be our Joseph's first time ever running any super stuff during speed weeks. So it should be interesting. It's two tracks, Ocala and Altec, where he's been. That we chose those races, to go to during speed weeks because he's the better of all the speed weeks tracks that he's ran at. So hopefully it'll go well, be a good learning experience, and kind of kick the year off in a big way.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks for the time today, dude.
No problem. Thanks for having me.